The correct IUPAC name for the following compound is. So when we're looking for an IUPAC name, that is our systematic system of nomenclature. So this is the systematic name. And so you want to select the longest as a parent chain, the longest carbon chain, and if you have a functional group, you want to make sure that that longest carbon chain that contains your functional group. And so we can see for this one that we do have a functional group. This compound is an alkene because of the double bond. And so we're going to give that priority in numbering. So that means that we are going to pick the longest carbon chain that has that alkene, and we're also going to number to give that alkene the lowest possible number. So that means we're going to start from this side, because I can see I would hit my alkene at carbon 1, 2, 3 versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm not even looking at where the substituents are. It's the alkene that gets that priority in numbering because it is a functional group. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So we've got the alkene at carbon 3. So that means that our parent name here is either 3-octene is one way we could write it, or we could insert the 3 right before the ene to be extra clear that that 3 is associated with the alkene, and that would look like oct-3-ene. And both of those options are accepted by IUPAC, so you should be familiar with both of them. Okay. And you would never have to pick between them in your options. You would only see one. And so we see here these names are all using this sort of system. So we're definitely looking at, we can cross out B and C because they've got the chain number the wrong way. So we are going to look at A and D. So we can see where our substituents are. We have methyl groups at carbon 3 and carbon 7. So we have a 3,7 dimethyl. Okay, so we have so far 3, 7 dimethyl oct-3-ene. And so that's not distinguishing A and D. That's because 3,7 dimethyl oct-3-ene has two stereoisomers, one that is E and one that is Z. So we need to take a look at this alkene and see if it is E or Z. So for E, once you assign your priority functional group, so on each of the carbon atoms of the alkene, you will assign a priority 1 and a priority 2, or 1 and 2. And that priority is given based on atomic numbers. So if those high priority groups, so say you came up with 1 and 2 on this carbon, 2 and 1 here, so if they are on opposite sides, then that is E. Okay, for Z, you probably figure this out, it's going to be on the same side. So when you assign those priority groups, if they are on the same side, then that is Z. So same. So we need to assign the priorities on these carbon atoms. So if we look at carbon 4 will be the easiest one. If we look in this direction, we have a bond to a carbon. And straight down, we have a bond to a hydrogen. So what that means is that our high priority group, because we compare carbon and hydrogen, carbon has a higher atomic number. So that overall is our priority group 1, and then our priority group 2 is the hydrogen. So now we need to look at the next carbon atom and assign our priorities and see if the priority 1 is also pointing up, then it would be Z. If it's pointing down in the opposite direction, then it would be E. So we see that we have a carbon and we have a carbon. And so those are the same. So now we need to say, well, what are these carbons bound to? And so if we look at what this carbon is bound to, we see that it has 2 bonds to carbon and 2 hydrogens, 2 bonds to hydrogen. And so if we look at this carbon, this is a methyl group, it's got that 1 bond to carbon, and then it's got 3 bonds to hydrogen. And so we compare, notice I've listed them in decreasing atomic numbers so that I can easily find the difference. So I say carbon, carbon, that's the same. I go to the next atom, I see hydrogen, carbon. And here's my point of difference. That means that this group here pointing down is your higher priority, and this group that's pointing up is your lower priority. So we see that these are on opposite sides. So we have our priority ones on opposite sides. So that means E. So to complete our name, we would put the E out in front. So that means that this is option A.